What is up, my friends? You are very welcome along to Tuesday night's late night agenda, where we have lots of developing news to go through. We're going to speak about Nico. No, we're not going to speak. Yes, we are. We're going to speak about Nico Shearer, and his report that maybe a deal is already agreed there for Giovanni LEONI. We're going to speak about Marc Guéhi and how quickly this deal is moving with Crystal Palace. We will, of course, speak about Alexander Isak and lots more over the course of the next 90 minutes. Pleasure to be here with you guys. Always appreciate you coming in to have a chat with me. And tonight should be, well, lots of fun because developments have happened and they're coming thick and fast. We were on last night and we were wondering what the hold-up was, whether we were going to start moving for centre-backs. I don't know if they heard us or if we were just lucky that this happened today. Probably the second part, to be honest with you. But I'm going to take you through exactly where we're at and why we can start to get pretty goddamn excited again about Liverpool's summer transfer business. So I want to start off with a report just as we were going live that dropped into my inbox, and it's Nico Shearer who said, exclusive, agreement in principle between Giovanni LEONI and Liverpool for a contract until 2031. Liverpool are set to offer €35 million to Parma to sign him, even if the Reds could remake the same strategy until last year with Mamardashvili. LEONI will stay at Parma on loan until 2026. Now, I mentioned this in the podcast I recorded earlier on with the lads, and I mentioned it in the video as well. That, to me, seems like a sensible play. Bring him in, buy him, make sure he's a Liverpool player, and keep him having his development over in Italy. I've no problems with that whatsoever, as long as we, of course, bring in Marc Guéhi, which it looks like we're going to do. So we'll talk through all of that. One thing that really did stand out to me when we were speaking about the Marc Guéhi situation is how every journalist that's written about this today seems to be at pains to say that Liverpool have a very good relationship and have been very respectful to Crystal Palace in the way that they've gone about it. That certainly hasn't been lost on me, so I want to talk about that tonight as well. Right, let's get into a couple of super chats. Chad, first one in tonight. How are we, my man? I hope you're well. Good day to you, Craig. Hope you're well. Exciting news today. Much needed. Certainly is. It's brilliant news, mate. And again, Liverpool once again flexing their transfer muscles in the window. And this is, I got to be honest, this is more than I had hoped for yesterday. Sitting here having my doubts about whether an 18-year-old could come in and make a difference. Well, if we bring in Marc Guéhi and Giovanni LEONI and loan him back out, come on now. That's pretty goddamn good, isn't it? So we'll talk about that tonight as and when we get a little bit more news on it. But of course, I'll take you through where we're at with this, what the journalists have been saying, and maybe what we can expect. This as well, Richard Hughes was our best signing last summer, said Rusba. Thank you, mate. Look, what a difference 24 hours can make, certainly to my mood anyway. You know, we're starting to think, God, with the league starting on Friday, are we ready to go? Had my doubts on it, but now I'm feeling pretty goddamn good about life. And also, I guess I want to speak tonight a little bit about what the situation could mean for Ibrahim Konate, as we still don't know Ibu's future plans. Will he be staying at the club? Will he not? The signings of Marc Guéhi, Giovanni LEONI, I think gives us breathing room either way. So I want to talk about what that might mean and certainly what you guys are thinking in that regard. Do you know much about how LEONI plays? No. No, I don't, mate. Yeah, I really don't. I know he's, 6'4", 6'5", models himself on Virgil van Dijk. That's about it for me. You know, I'll be like everybody else, watching clips, trying to find out. Certainly following his progress this season. If he does go back out on loan to Parma or to Serie A, I'll certainly be paying a lot more attention to him. But no, mate, for me, a month ago, I didn't know this dude existed, really. So now I'm definitely playing catch-up, Cameron. Right. Mark said Liverpool said no to loan. Look, either way, I don't care. You know, whether we loan him back or not, brilliant. But going out to get both of them, it just makes a massive statement, mate, in the market. And again, gives us more breathing room to see what happens with the future of Konate, because that's still unresolved as we sit here now. So let's get into where we're at tonight, and we'll play catch up then. So I won't even go back as far as I did with the video earlier on, because some of that news is already old now. This is how quickly it's moving. So let's work from this evening and where we're at. So Fabrizio Romano, speaking for Gimme Sport with Ben Jacobs, said that he believes Liverpool are ready to make their move for Alexander Isak and the deal has a good chance of happening. So today we also seen that Alexander Isak's rental property that he had rented out has been put back on the market to rent. And like I've been saying to Newcastle fans all summer, and sometimes they just don't want to hear it because they need to vilify somebody, we aren't the baddies in this situation with Isak. This situation was going to come to a head between Newcastle and Isak, whether Liverpool were involved or not. The fact that Liverpool are a destination of choice for Isak, and yes, of course, we're interested. I really would love to know where Newcastle fans' heads are at now, because let's be honest, they've had an absolute shit show in this window with Isak. And like I've said numerous times, he doesn't want to play for Newcastle anymore. And it looks as if, well, he could get his move to Liverpool. Everybody's been having their say on it. Even Paul Merson has been having his say, and this is some of what he's had to say. There was so many saying Isak wouldn't leave. He wouldn't leave Newcastle. In the end, when the players decide they want to go, that's it. It's just unbelievable. Newcastle have just won their first trophy since before I was born, said Merson. Everything is great there, and Isak is a big part of that. Suddenly, bang, an absolute spanner has been thrown into the works by Isak. So, again, Merson showing us that he doesn't understand the situation. Because you can try and blame all of this on Isak, but what about the contract he was promised a year ago? What about the recruitment and the reinforcements brought in and around him? I'd even seen Craig Houlden today, I think he was responding to Anfield Sector, and said, the irony is that Newcastle are now starting to do the things that Isak wanted them to do. Well, yes, because they know the money is coming in for Isak from Liverpool. So, yeah, they're starting to go out there and actually do some business, but it just really makes it clear to me that the agenda here is to vilify Isak at all costs. Newcastle seemingly are being absolved of any responsibility of this by many in the media. And look, I'm not saying Isak's dealt with this amazingly well, but what I am saying is, you got to be clear about this. This was no surprise to Newcastle. Isak didn't just come up and go, oh, Liverpool want me, I'm off. They've been telling Newcastle for a long time they weren't happy. Melissa Reddy's piece said, again, he informed Newcastle a long time ago that he wanted to move and gave them adequate time to go out into the market and find a replacement. The fact that Newcastle have been unable to do that, that speaks more to their own internal problems than anything else. So let's wait and see how this one pans out. But safe to say, Newcastle fans, you're probably going to see that gif of me, the one you all love so much. The one where I look up and give you a little wave. I know you're all loving making your little videos about me and all, which really fucking makes me laugh. Imagine making a 16-minute video about a short that I did. I mean, I couldn't even get 16 minutes out of it, but Newcastle fans have somehow managed to get 16-minute clips out of it, which is brilliant. But you know what the most important part of all of this is? And it's really important to me that they know this. I was right, wasn't I? I was fucking right, wasn't I? I was, yeah. No, I was. I was right, wasn't I? Remember when I told you? Remember when I said to you, learn your place. This will come back to bite you in the arse. It's not a good look for the club. Stop trying to pretend that you're a big club and know how to deal with the situation. How's that looking? How's that looking for you now, Geordies? Because it's looking like, the boy's going to come do the big boy things at the big boy club. And I know, you hate me. I know, I get it. But I revel in it. I fucking love it. Because honestly, it is shown that you're not ready to be a big boy club just yet. I don't know what to say on this, by the way, except thank you, mate. I have other super chats I have to get through, but my God. Dude. Thank you. I mean, I don't deserve it, mate. Nobody does, but wow. Hi, Craig. How are you? I'm shocked is how I am, sir. Shocked and grateful and wow. I have a pain in my ceann, which is head, by the way, for anybody who doesn't speak Irish. So I read the headline from Anfield Watch that we're supposed to link to a World Cup winner. LEONI and GUEHI are the players mentioned. They've never won a World Cup or Euros at any level. How do these journalists sleep at night? I don't know. I was reading another headline from a paper, let's say, that rhymes with Schmecko. And that headline said, let me read it out to you because I don't want to be doing them dirty. Oliver Glasner's stance on March Gay clear. Yes, March Gay. Not Mark. No. Not the professional journalists. No. You know the ones that love to look down their noses at the rest of us who play journalists on YouTube. Yeah, March Gay. Good work, lads. Good work. Showing the professionals who's boss there. I don't know what to say, my man, but thank you, and thank you again, because there's nothing I can say that justifies the generosity of that super chat, mate. Thank you, and thank you again. I really cannot say it enough. Thank you. And thank you again. Where was I at? This one from Lewis Orr said Gay, LEONI and ISAK will be all Reds next week. So I think we surely agree. Actually, do you know what? Let's put it to a poll. Because I gotta find out whether you agree with me on this. So if we sign ISAK, Gay, and LEONI, is this the greatest ever transfer window? So, if we sign ISAK, Gay and LEONI, is this the greatest ever transfer window in football? I know, being Liverpool fans, we may be biased on this one, but I struggle to think of a better one. If we end this window with Georgi Mamardashvili, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, Mark Gay, Giovanni LEONI, Florian Wirtz, Ugo Ekitike, Alexander Isak, I don't know how anybody could have had a better window than that. And let's talk about maybe a net spend then of about 200 million. I don't know what else to say. That is that has to be right up there. If not the best, it has to be pretty damn close to it. Mark reminded me that Mark Gay won the Euros with the England under 17s mutts. So just on this one, bro, Mark just messaged me to say Gay won the Euros with under 17s. So he said the chat reminded him. So at least they found something. Unlike March Gay in the Schmecko. March Gay. Oliver Glasner has his say on March Gay. Right. Off topic, opinion on Ugo Wirtz and fullbacks. So on Hugo Ekitike and Florian Wirtz, my opinion is that the signs of that relationship were pretty amazing. Even in a defeat to Crystal Palace on penalties in the Community Shield, you can see the understanding that's been worked on there between Hugo Ekitike and Florian Wirtz. It was one of the real plus points in the game for me. And on the fullbacks, we spoke about this on the podcast, actually. It's going to be out for members at about 11 p.m. tonight, and it'll be out for everybody in the morning. But we spoke about exactly that on the podcast. And, you know, the feeling was that the fullbacks were at times too advanced, but also we didn't have, you know, Gravenberch there. We had Curtis Jones there, who wasn't really able to, I guess, help out the centre-backs as much as we would expect from the likes of Ryan Gravenberch. So for me, a little bit unsure, and I'd like to see a proper defensive midfield in there before I really know if we're going too attacking with the fullbacks or not. You know, there's certainly still stuff to be worked on there, mate, but very promising signs, especially from the Wirtz and Hugo Ekitike standpoint. Liam said, love the future-proofing backline with the two signings, young and top quality. Aside from Salah, very young, the rest of the squad too. Yeah, it's great planning. You know, we sat here last night and, you know, I was kind of going back and forth on, are we leaving ourselves too much to do? What's waiting? You know, what's taking so long in the centre-back situation? And then today, like clockwork, not just one, but potentially both. And at first today, when I started to see the news come up, Liam, I was wondering, you know, was it going to be one or the other? Were we working on two in case one didn't work out? But as the day went on, it became clearer and clearer that it was not one, it was probably both. So before I get into some more super chats, I just want to read back through some of the news stories today, because I want to keep everybody up to date as well. So Romano said, breaking, Liverpool are close to an agreement with Crystal Palace for Mark Gay, package of around 35 million. Then we had Giovanni Leoni, keen on a move to Liverpool, said Romano. Here's an interesting one from Moby Hayek, who always pops up with some good tweets. He said, I kept getting asked questions on whether Giovanni Leoni will be considered homegrown. The answer is yes. If we sign him, he would be, in 3 years' time, a homegrown player. A homegrown player is irrespective of nationality or age, has been registered with any club affiliated with the FA or Wales FA for a period, continuous or not, of 3 entire seasons, 36 months before 21st birthday. So, or the end of the year which he turns 21. So, if he stayed with us for 3 years, at the end of that 3-year period, Giovanni Leoni would be considered homegrown. So, that would be one player there for the future. Mark Gay, of course, we know was homegrown as well. The Athletic say that Liverpool are not targeting a move for Paris Saint-Germain forward Bradley Barcola, which, again, like I said, something smelt off about that to me over the past few weeks. So the Echo saying, or not the Echo, excuse me, the Athletic saying no interest in that move. James Pearce has said Mark Gay has indicated that he wants to move to Anfield, but understand Liverpool have not yet agreed personal terms with the England defender. Discussions club to club first, out of respect for Steve Parish and Palace. Do you know, Newcastle fans, have you not noticed something here? Respect, Liverpool to Crystal Palace. Respect between Liverpool and Bayern Munich. Even Bayern Munich's sporting director Max Eberl came out and said Liverpool were a pleasure to deal with. Very respectful, very courteous. So, again, I would argue, is it us that's the problem, or perhaps is it you guys not knowing how to deal with a big transfer that's the problem? I think it's the latter. Ben Jacobs said, understand Leeds are not currently considering a move for Costas despite links. Then we had DiMarzio saying, Leoni to Liverpool, positive contacts. The deal could see a potentially decisive acceleration in the next few hours and ultimately come to a conclusion. Parma price tag, €30 million plus bonuses. Then we had Giovanni Leoni is super excited about Liverpool project. Personal terms won't be an issue. Giovanni Leoni is, all capitals, convinced. And remember, Leoni models himself and idolises Virgil, so he could get to learn off the best. Mark Gay and Giovanni Leoni said yes to Liverpool, said Fabrizio Romano. Negotiations ongoing between clubs for both players. Then we had Florian Plettenberg, who said, being told again that Liverpool's clear priority is Mark Gay. Negotiations with Crystal Palace are ongoing as the 25-year-old centre-back wants to join Liverpool. Super talented 18-year-old centre-back Giovanni Leoni could also join Liverpool in this transfer window, with advanced talks taking place behind the scenes as previously revealed. Then we had Paul Joyce. As if we didn't have enough top-tier journalists talking about it, Paul Joyce enters the fray and said Liverpool are advancing in talks with Crystal Palace over a deal for Mark Gay as they urgently seek defensive reinforcements. Lewis Steele said Liverpool are very close to a deal with Crystal Palace for Mark Gay. Then we had Romano say Liverpool will make a new bid for Alexander Isak. So it's all coming up Millhouse here, folks. It's starting to all come together, and I've got more to go through, but I want to not ignore the comments. So I want to get into the chat again. Michael Savage, how are we, sir? Now, 6 celebs have been revealed for Strictly. Seeing your moves, will you be a no? Would you prefer 2 forwards, 1 defender, or the other way around? 2 defenders, 1 forward, to me, was the preference. You know, if I had to have 2 of one and 1 of the other, 2 defenders, 1 forward was kind of where I was at. And me on Strictly, no, never. The only one of those type of shows you'd ever get me on is like a Big Brother, because the psychological warfare of Big Brother, that appeals to me. But Strictly Come Dancing, nobody needs to see my fat ass into a bit of spandex or what, mate. No, it's not going to benefit humanity at all, that one. We are doing to Canade what PSG did to Donnarumma. Bringing in another player and saying, you know, we don't need you. We're not going to fall apart if you're not here. And that is actually something I'm glad you brought up, because I'm unsure what to make of that situation. Like, I do love that Liverpool are looking to bring in Mark Gay and Giovanni Leoni, but I'd also love Canade to extend and in the future, then LEONI to come in. Maybe Gomez moves on in a year's time or something, and we'd have LEONI, Van Dijk, Mark Gay, and Canade. But I really don't know what the situation is with Canade. But I tell you what, this does make me feel less stressed about it. You know, the ball will be in Canade's court, whether he wants to extend or not. But if you're looking at it from a footballing project, you've got to be excited. If you're Ibrahim Canade and you're seeing the way Liverpool have strengthened, you've got to say you would expect that we'd be challenging in all competitions. And from a footballing project, that would surely be appealing to Canade. Again, I don't know what the numbers conversation is between Ibrahim Canade's camp and Liverpool. I don't know how big a difference there is there in the valuation of the contract, but I think we're certainly covering ourselves now for any eventuality. I don't want to see Canade leave on a free, though. I don't. I think setting that precedent for players walking out the door on a free, it just isn't great. And we've seen too many of them in recent years. So one way or the other, I'd like to see Canade's future resolved in this window. But ultimately, doing what we're doing now is giving us far more breathing room. Aaron said, both centre-halves and ISAK surely means no winger. I really don't know, Aaron. Like, if you look at the numbers-wise in attack, so let's say we bring in ISAK. So you've got ISAK, Rio, Gakpo, Ekitike, Salah. Am I missing anybody there? I know Ben Doak is still around, but realistic options for the manager. So you've got 5 options there. Maybe you include Wirtz as the 6th. And I can absolutely understand the suggestion to get a wide player in, maybe even a young one. But for me, it'll come down to one answer to a question. How does Arne realistically view Rio Engamoa? Because I didn't like that he didn't feel he could turn to Rio in the Community Shield at Wembley. And if we're in a similar situation in a league game or a Champions League game, and Arne doesn't feel he can turn to Rio Engamoa, then we've all kidded ourselves about him being ready for this season. Now, if Arne does feel really that he can turn to him this season, great. But that to me is going to be the answer to whether we're left short or not. How ready Arne really feels that Rio Engamoa is. Not the public line, but really when it comes down to it, when he looks to his bench, does he feel that he's ready to bring him on? You know, you can't answer that, mate. I can't answer it. It'll come down to the manager. I forgot Chiesa. I did forget Chiesa, that's fair, but also whether Chiesa stays or not, it really doesn't make any difference to me because hand on heart, I don't think the manager's going to use him. I know you're right, there have been things in the past day to say Chiesa's going to stay because we're not leaving ourselves short numbers-wise, but ultimately, who is that benefiting if he's not going to play him? And again, look at this logically. He hasn't had a pre-season. He's had a bit of a pre-season, but he hasn't had a full pre-season. Wasn't thought of to go on the pre-season tour. I just still struggle to believe that push coming to shove, Arne wants Chiesa in the squad. You know, is it just a number at this point? Because again, if he looks to his bench and he doesn't feel like he's ready to bring Chiesa on, you know, has he really gotten the game time to get him into a rhythm that we were hearing all last season was the reason he wasn't being played? Because he was playing catch-up, he had a disturbed pre-season, didn't get minutes in his legs, didn't get a rhythm. I don't see how any of that has changed over this summer. Virginia said, a couple of good videos on LEONI on YouTube. Thank you, Virginia. I will certainly be watching many of those. Adrian said, Richard Hughes watched your stream last night. It does make me smile when these happy coincidences happen. You know, sometimes I joke about these things, and what always gets me, Adrian, is when I make a video and I clearly sarcastically say, well, you know, don't tell me I don't have a say over transfers when I do a ranty video and then they start signing them. It always baffles me that people think I'm being serious. I need a sarcasm button that I can press when I'm being sarcastic because I really don't believe I have any influence over Liverpool's transfers. Or do I? Am I being too modest? I probably am, you know. I probably am being too modest. Sarcasm. Right. Oliver said, if we get ISAK, GUEHI, LEONI. I feel confident, but not having a pre-season is concerning. You were right. So, look, getting ISAK in, he's not going to be ready until probably after the September international break. And I have been saying this for a while now. Whether he stayed at Newcastle or whether he came to Liverpool, he hasn't had a pre-season. So he is going to take time to bed in. Now, Mark GUEHI, I don't worry about in any way, shape or form. Don't need to, think he needs pre-seasons or whatever. He was, in my opinion, on Sunday, the best centre-back on the pitch. I'm not saying he's better than Van Dijk longer term, but what I seen on Sunday, I thought he was the best one on the pitch. So I'd have no qualms about him being ready straight away. Chad Husker 22 said, losing ISAK has to hurt a bit, but it amazes me that the Geordies can't see how much the money will help them. That's how teams grow into big boy teams. So what amazes me about it is, right, let's look at Crystal Palace. And Steve Parish did an interview yesterday where he spoke about the fact that Crystal Palace as a club just cannot allow a player like Mark GUEHI to leave for free. It would be detrimental to Newcastle's project, or to Crystal Palace's project. And there's an awareness of where they are and what they are. They're a club that won a competition last year, will be playing European football, but he knows they aren't a final destination for a player like Mark GUEHI. And that's what's baffled me about Newcastle fans in this whole ISAK drama. Regardless of whether you think Newcastle have acted correctly, ISAK has thrown his toys out with the pram, you've got to surely understand that at this point in Newcastle's development, they are not a final destination club. And I say this as a Liverpool fan who grew up in the 80s, 90s, and 90s, where it happened to us quite a bit. Felipe Coutinho didn't feel that he could do everything he wanted to do with Liverpool and wanted to go to Barca. Luis Suarez at one point wanted to go to Arsenal. So I just think Newcastle fans got ahead of themselves when they were taken over by the PIF and they suddenly thought that they were now the richest club in the world, but they're not. They might have the richest owners, but PSR is still what it is. And you've got to work from within the framework of the rules. And Newcastle's owners have tried to do that. But Newcastle are not a Liverpool. They are not a Real Madrid. They are not a Bayern Munich. They just aren't. And that isn't me trying to piss all over them. You just need to have some sense of realism in these situations. And what it also does, and I've said this many times, if you're Sesko and you have Newcastle on the phone and you've got United on the phone, and for what it's worth, I still think he should have went to Newcastle. But if you are Sesko, and with all due respect, you're not going to think about moving to Newcastle to be the last move in your career where you achieve everything. You would expect to go in there, do 3 or 4 years, prove yourself, and then get that big move. But what they've shown here is what ISAK has had to go through to get this deal to leave. Now, again, Newcastle fans are still probably going to feel like I'm arrogant, Liverpool are arrogant, and all of this is just sheer arrogance. But let's talk about the facts. ISAK has been lied to. He's seen turmoil behind the scenes at Newcastle. And Newcastle haven't got their ducks in a row for this summer's transfer business. They just haven't. So what message is this sending to potential signings in the future? That if you do come in and a British record transfer fee comes in for you, we're still going to act petty about it. We're still going to brief and belittle Liverpool in the media and the player. It just isn't a good look. Got to understand that as well. Like your attractiveness to other players. Look at Borussia Dortmund. They know what they are. They are a club that will be in Champions League. They're a club that can attract in young players, give them a great platform, but sometimes they're going to want to move on, and that facility needs to be there to do it. And by all means, Newcastle deserve to be well compensated, and they would be. Just needs a bit more self-awareness. Mark Ames said, "Evening, Craig. Hope you're well. May I ask you, what's your opinion on Salah's performance on Sunday? Personally, I thought it was well below par. It wasn't great. I don't read too much into it. It's one game. If we're talking about Mohamed Salah's form 3 games into the season, different conversation. First half, I felt like we weren't able to get him involved in the game enough. Second half, he was more involved in it, but didn't look himself. So I've spoken lots of times about not being able to just switch on and off intensity and switch on and off ruthlessness. So we kind of coasted at the end of the season for obvious reasons. And now we've had a pre-season. And I just don't see yet that full throttle readiness in the players. And some of that was on show with Mo. So not overly concerned by it, Mark, but certainly feel it was a bit of a wake-up call in some ways Sunday. However seriously you took the game as a fan, there were things that I felt we could have done better and need to be sharper. Chris said, personally, know Charlie Cresswell's coach from when he was at Leeds is apparently exploring a move to Roma or Como, then maybe the Prem in a year or two. Understand that as well. You know, in that position especially, Chris, it's very difficult for a young centre-back, whether you're 17, 18, 19, to come to a top club and get game time every week. Because it is a position that experience is important as well. So would make absolute sense for the likes of a Charlie Cresswell or even a Giovanni Leoni. Like I said last night, loaning him back's probably the sensible play. But if we don't, fair enough. I could understand Cresswell's thinking going down that route, mate. I really could. Craig is back. Love the shithousery. Thank you, Sam. Look, it is all just fun on my side. I don't ever, really want to hurt anybody with it, but it's just a bit of fun. I can take it as well, although people don't think I can. I absolutely can when it's fun. But look, I went into this summer being respectful to Newcastle fans because I like them and I like their club. But my goodness, it's been an interesting summer, to say the least, to see the reactions. And again, the comparisons are mad. So there was a Newcastle fan burning an ISAK shirt, and somebody tried to say, oh, well, you lot burn Gerrard shirts. Well, yeah, Liverpool fans, some of them burn Gerrard shirts. But again, we're not comparing apples with apples. ISAK isn't a born and bred Geordie. Didn't grow up through the club's academy. Doesn't have the same impact as Steven Gerrard did coming through at Liverpool, and it doesn't mean the same to the city. So, all the comparisons I've seen around all these things are all just tin pot and just silly. Right, let's check in on our poll. So we said, if we sign ISAK, GUEHI and LEONI, is this the greatest ever transfer window? 94% of over 3,000 people that voted said yes, this is the greatest transfer window. It's been... I struggle to think of a better one, although I know Real Madrid had one mad summer where they brought in, I can't remember, but some of the Galacticos in one group, and that turned out pretty well as well. Sam said, GUEHI is more consistent than Canade, although Canade is physically stronger. I know I didn't mean 66, not Gerrard. I meant Gerrard, because there was Liverpool fans burning Gerrard shirts when he was about to go to Chelsea. So no, I did mean Gerrard. But I think I agree. I think Mark GUEHI is more solid and steady than Ibrahima Canade, but I love the idea of being able to have both of them if Canade extends, because then I think we're giving our manager an incredible group of centre-backs and may the best pairing win for each game. Why are we not in for Eze if he's available? Probably a couple of things. One, age profile. I know he's not old, but you look at the way Liverpool recruit, and what is Eze, 26, 27? It just never struck me as a Liverpool type of deal. So yeah, I never really expected our name to be linked with Eze much. Colin, I hope Alex isn't affected by all the hate. I hope he joins ASAP and not September. I'm sure he wants as many games as he can go for. Hope you're well. It's just a shitty situation, Colin. And I don't like it, and I've said this so many times. There's some mad belief with Newcastle fans that we're all, egging ISAK on and thinking it's great. No, it's not nice. None of it's nice when this happens in football. In an ideal world, this would have been sorted out behind the scenes and it wouldn't have to happen. I hate it when it happens with players and clubs because the club always ends up having to vilify the player. And I don't like it. And like I've said, Melissa Reddy spoke very well about this and pointed out that this is not new information to Newcastle. They knew this was coming. But at what point does a player say, I'm done? I didn't get a new contract. There's been too much turmoil behind the scenes. You haven't really brought in players in and around to strengthen enough. I haven't been delivered the promises that I got when I came here. He's held up his part of it. He's banged in goals. So, not an ideal situation. Don't like to see it happen, but, ultimately, this is the way these transfers work, unfortunately, at times, and it is what it is. Love the non-Liverpool fans comparing the Trent situation to ISAK's. What a joke. Got my mate as a United fan trying to back up Trent now. The whole thing is a piss take, mate. And like I've said, I always look for the root of why these things are out there. And anybody that tries to compare or belittle is only doing it for that reason. They're not going into this logically to try and think, for a fair comparison. They're just out there to undermine Liverpool, and that's their only intent with it. Sorry, totally disagree with you. Salah works his balls off to get a new contract, and he's just sitting now trying to make all these new players be there, and the front line's not the same force with Diaz. So, Jeff, respectfully, what proof do you have that Salah's just sitting there or sitting back? None. Respectfully, Jeff, you're talking out your hoop. Because you've seen one semi-competitive game with Salah where he didn't play well. That's it. And you think that that's enough for you to say that Salah's just sitting back and resting on his laurels now? If Mohamed Salah was motivated by money, he would have been gone. But he isn't. He could have earned infinitely more money elsewhere. And I'm not even talking about Saudi. I'm talking about Paris Saint-Germain. I'm talking about other clubs that would have paid him more. So I really, 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 really think you're being incredibly disrespectful to a player that fought really hard to show he wanted to still be here because he wants to win stuff and he wants to set records at Liverpool. And he won't do those by sitting on his arse, will he? Or he won't do those by not being 100%. So, stupid comment. Kazawa said, how many more players are we signing, do you think? Oh God, I don't know, mate. I mean, anything after these and I'm good. These three would be more than enough for me. One more on top of that would be amazing. Yeah, I think if you just offered me these three, dude, I'd be happy with that. But if there was another defensive midfielder or a young winger brought in, wouldn't be unhappy about that either. Salah was shite on Sunday though. And what's your fucking point? Do you expect a player to be brilliant every single week, is it? You petty fans need to just give it a fucking rest. Because some of the nonsense you've all spoken towards your players on Saturday and Sunday, was a disgrace. Salah didn't have a great game. No problem admitting that. But so what? What's your fucking point? Is he not allowed to have a bad game every now and again? We're not talking about Salah a month into the new season having not scored or assisted. The man was responsible for 52 or 53% of our goals last season in one way, shape or another. Grow the fuck up. And also, and I hate to even have to bring this up, but, they did lose a friend and a teammate. And I don't know if you've suffered loss in your life, but different people are impacted in different ways by it, and maybe some take longer than others. And like I've said, these are all doing it in the spotlight of the public gaze with the world watching. So to see some of the overreaction to one bad performance in a semi-competitive game from a player that, let's be honest, has more than enough goodwill in the bank, it's embarrassing, quite frankly. Madrid signed Ronaldo, Alonso and Benzema in the same window. This is the best window, in my opinion, but Liverpool would be a close second. No, this is better for me than that window. They're three incredible players, but look at the breadth of what Liverpool have done here in this window. We're talking Wirtz, we're talking ISAK potentially, Ekatike, two good fullbacks, another goalkeeper. I just think for the sheer volume of it, and if you go down through each one, they'd be good. But look, that is an incredible window as well, mate. Don't know, like, what we're talking about there are three absolute worldies in Cristiano, in Xavi, and Karim Benzema. Absolutely three legends at that club as well. Jay said these are not supporters, they will be Pogo fans. Mate, I get it every time I watch along. Like, people often say to me that, oh, Craig gets too angry. If you had to read some of the shit that I read, it's embarrassing. It honestly is pathetic. And, you know, this is when we're 0-0 after 40 minutes at times. It really is just childish. You know, either you've never played sport or you don't know what you're looking at, but form goes up and down, and this isn't even a competitive game we're talking about, and people are losing their fucking minds. I don't know what to say. You know, was I happy with it? No. But again, there always has to be a scapegoat for people, and it's usually one person they look to scapegoat. You know, we all around weren't good enough. You know, the only positive aspects were probably Ugo Ekatike, maybe Florian Wirtz. Other than that, there were questions most of the way around the pitch on Sunday. Stephen said, Craig, I read Slot spoke to Chiesa about staying as we need attackers. Did you see this too? Yeah, there was a report last night, Stephen, that said that Arna and Liverpool had spoken with Chiesa and his agent, and that, like you've said, the report said that they were both told that Liverpool need 6 attackers, and as it sits, Chiesa won't be going anywhere. Now, I guess there's two ways to look at this. I can understand it from a numbers game, but is it worth it if he's not going to really play him? And we last season we had him on the bench, but we didn't play him. And like, what's the point for anybody of a player there who you won't play because you're going to say isn't sharp, but can't get sharp without being played, and is costing us 7 million quid a year in wages? So we'd all love Chiesa to get minutes because loads of us were excited when we signed Chiesa, and plenty of us still would be. But for me, if he stays, he has to be used, or it's just a waste of time for everybody. Wasted the Goat 1 said, shows how quick things can happen in 24 hours. Absolutely. But it's why we love football, isn't it? It's great. You know, one 24-hour period, like you've said, I've gone from having questions of what the hell is happening? Are we moving quick enough? Could we be in trouble? To now thinking again, oh my God, this is one of the best summers ever. It's, yeah, 24 hours is mad in football. Ivan, how are we? Lovely to see you win as always, bro. I hope that life's treating you well. This one, Aaron said, hi Craig, not sure if you've covered this already, but do you think ISAK pushing the move because he knows we won't pay the 150 million? No, I think he's pushing for the move because he wants the move. I know that sounds really blunt and obvious, but this 150 million pound figure, we need to stop talking about it because it's never going to happen. I don't know. You know, if Newcastle fans are even thinking to themselves now, right, well, we might lose ISAK, but at least we're going to get 150 million. No, you're not. That's not going to happen. Because nobody from the Liverpool side in any way values ISAK at 150 million. That's just an arbitrary number that Newcastle have just thrown out into the world. The reports that I've been reading said that Liverpool feel like they're not too far off on the 110, 120 of what they think they'll be able to get him out for. Now, again, I don't know. I'm not involved in these conversations, but it won't be 150 million. You know, I would say 130 and he'll be a Liverpool player, but let's wait and see. What would happen if ISAK put in a transfer request, said Paul Donnelly? Would it reduce Newcastle's asking price? Yes. So it would save Newcastle money, but it would cost ISAK money. Now, I don't know the absolute ins and outs of it, but let's say it's 5% of the transfer fee, just for argument's sake. And I think there's loyalty bonuses that players are usually owed when they move on as well. These things, if you put in a transfer request, and it may vary, and certainly there are people far better placed to talk about this than me, but yeah, it would be a big financial hit for ISAK. And if you think about it from ISAK's perspective, he feels that he's had a whole year on lower wages already at Newcastle because he should have had a contract extension in his mind a year ago. So he's already gone through, let's say, 5-6 million quid less over a year. He's not going to want to take another financial hit then to move on. So it would be a very, very last resort thing to put in a transfer request. It would cost him a lot of money. Do you think Elliott stays? No, I don't. And even reading today on a few things, it does look as if the talks are going well with Leipzig from his perspective. But I do think he moves on by the end of the window. And again, his body language, looking at him around Wembley, kind of gave me more of a belief that he's going to move on. Right, let's keep going. Is it true that Dom is taking penalties? I haven't got a clue, mate. Look, I think it's worth... Do you know what? Let's ask that question because we spoke about this yesterday, actually. So, one sec. Right, should we revisit who takes our pens? Because I can only speak for me here. I've always been uncertain with Mohamed Salah over a penalty kick. Now, look, his record's been okay, but he's missed a good chunk. I felt far more comfortable when the likes of a James Milner were stepping up. So for me, I've never been fully sold on Salah taking them, but I understand him being the talisman that he does. But I'd be a liar if I sat here and said to you, I don't think we should revisit this. I do. I think now is the time to have a look at it because, you know, missing a couple in pre-season, fair enough, but he's also missed some in competitive games, and I just personally never feel supremely confident when he steps up. I can only speak for me, and I'm not trying to enforce my will on anybody else, but I do think it's at least a conversation now. Where are we? This one. Joy, how are we, sir? So big up, Craig. Great work as always. I can see it in the post in the chat. Have I been banned by accident? No, you wouldn't be able to super chat if you're banned, mate. So answer to that one is no. It wouldn't come up on our system if you were banned. Two Tom 4 said Leoni is watching a young VVD. So excited. Well, from my very, very limited 2 Tom 4 understanding of him, I think in previous interviews he's openly spoken about modelling some attributes of his game from Virgil, which, look, isn't a surprise, is it? You know, he is the best centre-back in world football in the past few years. Right, what have we got? So, another name here from Rudy Galletti for Newcastle fans. He said, Newcastle have identified Jean-Philippe Mateta as a top target in case Alexander Isak leaves. Crystal Palace would demand around 40 million to sell the forward. Certainly is a whole list here now in the last day or two of potential Newcastle targets, from Nicholas Jackson to Gonçalo Ramos to Ollie Watkins previously to Jean-Philippe Mateta. I don't know if there is any Newcastle fans in the chat. A serious question if you are. Who would be your preference? You know, if you're a Newcastle fan watching and you've seen the links to Matetas, to Nicholas Jacksons, who would be your preference to bring in? I know Visa is there and is a Callum Wilson replacement in thought process, which would be a good Callum Wilson replacement. But yeah, who would you be going for if you were a Newcastle fan? Paul Driscoll said, trust Salah still. He nails the pressure ones, too casual at times when the stakes are high. Yeah, I get that as well, mate. And like I said, I'm not trying to enforce my will on it. I just think it's an interesting conversation around the penalty situation with Mo. Raymond King, how are you, Raymond? Said Stoke to finally see us starting to finish our business in a big way this summer window. LEONI, GUEHI, ISAK, let's go. Yeah, it's very interesting to see, and I'm just really happy, mate. You know, I have to say, everything I've wanted Liverpool to do in this summer's transfer window so far, it looks like the plans are to do it. So let's talk about this potentially ending as a 10 out of 10 window. So, David Ornstein, speaking on the Sports Agent podcast, said this about Alexander Isak. The figure, there seems to be a consensus around football and among contacts you speak to, whether they've got links to the PIF, to Newcastle, to parties involved, of a fee in the region of £150 million. There's also a sense that Newcastle won't achieve that. That's why the initial expression of interest from Liverpool indicated they'd be willing to do a deal at around £120 million. Liverpool have been very quiet about this and sort of reserved. It appears they're kind of standing back and letting the situation between Isak and Newcastle unfold, and then if anybody opens the door and provides encouragement, no doubt they will step back in. Liverpool's stance, nothing has been indicated to me that they have been put off by this. They see this as a player who is committed to joining them and is showing his desire to fight his way out. Now, I want to add to this something that we talked about late last night. That was, one second, this piece from Ben Jacobs that said, regarding Liverpool's first bid for Isak, Newcastle called up Liverpool and said we should have a conversation because they realised that Isak was trying to force his way out. And that's why Liverpool were surprised when the bid was rejected so emphatically at 110 million. It doesn't make sense, does it? Newcastle reached out to Liverpool because they knew Isak wanted out and said, let's have this conversation. And Liverpool came to the table and, like any club, throw out a first bid that you don't expect to get agreed, but 110 to 120 million, and that to be so emphatically refused. And the way it was refused kind of caught Liverpool by surprise by the sounds of it, because why ask us to start the conversation if that level of response is what we're going to get? A bit of a confirmation here as well that the Premier League has announced plans to honour Liverpool forward Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva before all Premier League matches this weekend. The Premier League has been in discussions with Liverpool to determine the most fitting way to commemorate the Portuguese star who tragically lost his life in a car accident alongside his brother on July the 3rd in Spain. So I just wanted to mention that to you guys as well, as that was something that I'd seen in the news today. Valerian said, we were never accepting 110 plus, use bid lower like teams do. So I think the 110 was with add-ons, mate. So I think it probably would have gotten to 120. And like I said, no problem at Newcastle saying that's not the number. But it's the way it was communicated back to Liverpool seemingly, I don't want to say annoyed Liverpool, but, you know, let's make something clear here. They're talking about a potential British transfer record. And the way some Newcastle fans were going on, it was like Liverpool offered them 70. And Newcastle were, you know, going to try to sell him for the same money they bought him for. It needs context here. Liverpool were preparing to pay a record fee for Isak. And the way some arrogant Newcastle fans have gone on, it's like as if 120 million quid is nothing. It's just an arbitrary number. I can tell you as a Liverpool fan, us being willing to pay that much money is jaw-dropping to me. Same way when we spent 116 million on Wirtz, that was jaw-dropping. And I will also say to you, I don't think Alexander Isak is worth £130 million. I don't. I think he's a £100 million player, because you do have to take into account the concern about his injuries. So all in all, as a jumping off point, I think it was a very reasonable one to start the conversation at. Newcastle gave Liverpool a stiff backhand slap. Did they? Really? Cool. Let's talk about that stiff backhand slap then, shall we? Was the stiff backhand slap when we took Ekatike off you and told you what was going to happen if you didn't let us have Isak? Was that stiff backhand slap bailing us out by buying Darwin Núñez to send him to the Saudi Pro League. Yeah, we've learned our lesson. Really, really learned our lesson with that stiff backhand slap there from Newcastle of taking a calamitous forward off our hands and allowing us to potentially have both the players that you wanted. I'm still in pain about that stiff backhand slap, mate. If that's a stiff backhand slap, then my God, I'll pull my trousers down and I'm ready for a slap on the arse if that's what it takes, because my goodness, that's delicious. Right, let's keep going. Gary said, what's your thoughts on on Chelsea after Canade? I don't know if I believe it or not, to be honest. Seeing that report earlier on as well, let me just grab it for anybody who may not have heard about it. 2 seconds. Where was it? This one. So it was from Defensa Central, so I take it with a massive pinch of salt. And it said, Chelsea have lodged a 43 million offer for Canade. Now, look, let me say this. If Canade doesn't want to sign a new deal and Liverpool can't agree and that offer's on the table, take the fucking money. Take it. 43 million, take it and thank you very much. If Canade wants to stay, brilliant. Keep him on board, bring in Mark Gay. We're set for the future. But yeah, if that's a real offer and Canade doesn't want to extend, I would say take the money. But my preference, of course, is for Canade to extend. This one from 2Tom4. Wirtz can play left, Frimpong right, plus 2 options. Yeah, but Wirtz wasn't brought in to play left. Wirtz was brought in to be a 10. So I keep coming back to what we spoke about at the start of the window, which is not having to shoehorn people into positions and to not have to make do. So for me, it does need at least one more forward, and I think we'll get it, to be fair. Stevie Boy said, still think Fofana is a target for Liverpool. Yeah, I'd be a liar if I said it hasn't crossed my mind, Stevie Boy. I don't know if he is or not, to be honest with you. It certainly seems to have gone very quiet. Grealish signed for Everton today, actually, which is a very good signing for Everton. I think this one might work out, Grealish will go to a fan base there that are looking for a new hero in a new stadium with David Moyes back. And if they can keep him fit and playing, I think that will work out well for Everton as a signing. But Fofana, they haven't seemingly been able to get over the line or even close to being over the line yet, because I think he wants at least European football. But I don't know, mate, if Liverpool come back to that player as a link, or if they again would view that as maybe blocking the pathway for young Rio Ngamoa. Owen said, any news on Tsimikas? There was a couple of conflicting reports today, Owen. One said that he is likely going to move on. And then there was another one I read later this evening that said the very opposite and said that he could very well stay. So truth is, my man, I'm not sure. But it wouldn't really make sense to me to go into a season with 3 left-sided fullbacks, Kirkes, Robertson and Costas. It seems a bit too much. Would Mark Gay start ahead of VVD if he joins? Ahead of him? Not for me, no. Alongside him, perhaps, Cameron. Look, sincerely, if you have Mark Gay, Canade and Virgil van Dijk, and I mean this genuinely, any 2 of those 3 starting and I'm comfortable. Of course, we'll all have our own preferences and Virgil's our captain, but bring in Mark Gay and I am happy with any combination of the 3, whether it's Mark A shifting to the left, Virgil moving to the right, whether it's Mark A and Canade, whether it's Canade and Virgil van Dijk. It's just a brilliant, brilliant group, but I wouldn't say he starts ahead of VVD, no. In the long term, maybe he is the VVD replacement. Maybe it's Mark A and Giovanni Leoni we're talking about in 2 years' time. Lolly, how are we, sir? Hi Craig, why Kwanzaa replaced through LEONI? Shouldn't sell Kwanzaa, is LEONI better, really? So it's a really tough question for me to answer, Lolly, because I don't know all that much about LEONI, but it feels like Liverpool think LEONI is more likely to become one of the next great players at centre back, and they're unsure about Kwanzaa's. But we have covered our ass there because, of course, we do have the buyback option in Kwanzaa's contract. But I don't think Jarell Kwanzaa is going to turn into a top 10 centre-back in Europe. I just don't. I think he'll be a good player, but the club must feel that the ceiling is higher for LEONI. But like I said, I'm not the one to give you a fair answer on that because I don't know too much about him. No lie, Eli said Newcastle away second game makes me a little nervous. It is going to be tough, man. It's going to be tasty is the word I would use. So there's something that gives me a bit of hope for this one because going to St. James's Park at the best of times is a difficult game because it's a cauldron and, you know, there have always been good competitive games between us and Newcastle, you know, right the way back to the Premier League. But this, with the ISAK saga, you're going to have to be mentally switched on. But one thing I do want to point out is we have 10 days to prepare for it. So we play on Friday and then this is Monday week after. So there's no reason for us not to be prepared physically, tactically and mentally for that game because we have 10 days to work on the training ground to prepare the lads to know exactly what they're walking into, and it is going to be epic. It really, really is. And yeah, it's going to be a big game early in the season, and I'm really excited and I'm nervous by it because it's not easy to go up to St. James's Park. We've seen that they beat us in the League Cup and deservedly beat us. So yeah, it's going to be a big night, and if we can come away with the win there, it will be a very good indication of the season ahead. Craig Gascoigne said, Craig, hope you're well. Madrid signed Ronaldo, Kaká, Karim Benzema and Xabi Alonso in 2009. Very impressive. Ours is fantastic. Yeah, it was a pretty impressive window, dude. Can't argue with that one. Like I said earlier on, when somebody was reeling through them, it's a pretty good window. Where are we at? Kasawara said, when do you think we're getting the here we go for GUEHI and LEONI? Oh, really soon. Mark GUEHI could be tomorrow. You know, it seems like this one is starting to move very quickly. Just before I went live, Nicolo Shearer said exclusive agreement in principle between LEONI and Liverpool for a contract till 2031 is there. Liverpool are going to offer €35 million to Parma, and the Reds could loan him back on this report. I don't know if that part is true or not, but it looks like both those deals are progressing quickly. When you've got even the likes of Paul Joyce saying Liverpool are advancing in talks with Crystal Palace over a deal for Mark GUEHI as they urgently seek defensive reinforcements, it will move quickly. Blah said FSG must have found some new trousers in the wardrobe. The pockets of these pants are deep and I'm all here for it. Yep. I mean, I've seen so many posts that have said things like, imagine telling us Liverpool fans a year ago that we might break the British transfer window twice in one window, or transfer record twice in one window, would sign Florian Wirtz, Frimpong Kirkes, Mamardashvili, maybe ISAK, Ugo Ekitike. If I made a video predicting that a year ago, rightly, I would have been rinsed in the comments because I would have rinsed me in the comments. But yeah, here we are, and all I can say is I'm a very, very happy, grateful Liverpool fan if this all comes to happen. Certainly nothing but wow and oh my God from me. As Mark said, twice. Yeah, twice. Breaking it. And it almost then goes unsaid that we spend 70 million on Ekitike as well, like, because we're talking record transfer fees here for Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak if it happens. And then you're still forgetting about the 70 in there for Ugo Ekitike, which for us is a big number as well. This one from Sendrian said Hughes should steal Rodrigo from under Pep's nose. So I've always had a suspicion that that deal wasn't attractive to Liverpool. And here's why. Not because Rodrigo isn't a good player, but if you look at what that deal would probably cost over the course of the deal, versus, I don't know, let's say Hugo Ekitike, just as an argument. So Ekitike cost us 70 million quid, and I think his wages are, I think they're about 200 grand a week, there or thereabouts. So over the course of a 5-year contract, what's that? 50 million plus the 120 odd million over a 5-year deal. If you look at a deal for Rodrigo, you're probably talking about 75 to 80 million pound transfer fee. And even if he's on the wages he's currently on at Real Madrid, that then becomes probably 150 to 180 million pound transfer over 5 years. So just never felt like the numbers made sense for us for Rodrigo. So I was always a little bit dubious of the potential of that one happening. I'd rather not pay Real Madrid money. I agree. Where possible, I agree, mate. Paj, how are we, dude? Said, in my opinion, Craig, the midfield trio is more key than the front three, back four. It's the only thing that worries me. Lose the ball suddenly, 4-on-2 counters. So it's a really fair concern, but what I would say, Paj, is I would feel a lot more comfortable with Gravenberch in there than Curtis Jones. So it'll be interesting to see in transition, like you've said, if the fullbacks are as high forward as they are, will Gravenberch drop in to give us a back three? And then I'm a lot more comfortable, right? So if we've got a back three, or at least even him 10 yards in front of the back two, having three back there, maybe Virgil covering left, Canade covering the right, I do think that will make a difference. And there's also the balance that needs to be worked on attack and how high up those fullbacks are. So yeah, not the finished article yet in that regard, but I do think that one little thing will make a big difference. Dave's random video said, lost all respect for Palace Newcastle fans. I don't care what anyone thinks. But you clearly do, because you're making a statement about it, mate. And look, I'm not belittling you, Dave, either way. I would say I've lost some respect for some Newcastle fans. I've not really got any disrespect to Palace fans, to be honest with you, mate. It really was a handful of idiots that were interrupted, and it's not great, and I'm not trying to condone it. But I have to say I would hold Palace fans in pretty good regard overall. But look, as you said, you're entitled to your opinion, mate, and it is just that. Cal said Newcastle could and should have got Sesko, but what they clearly lack is the vision. Selling from Arna and the club made Wirtz and others choose us. So here's the way I look at this, Cal. They knew ISAK wanted out months ago. So you look at what Liverpool did this summer. Liverpool, we heard for a year that Liverpool were planning behind the scenes, preparing for the summer, and that they wanted to get all their ducks in a row. Then the summer window happens, and then bang, 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 deal, and we're all like, wow. Now we can see what was going on behind the scenes. Because for a year, we were having conversations like, what are they doing? What's Richard Hughes at? Are we really ready? Newcastle knew that ISAK was probably going to need to be replaced, and seemingly had nothing ready. Because when I say ready, I mean deals that, when the window opens, are almost a formality. You know, you just have to sign a few things and get an agreement done, which we clearly had in place. Doesn't feel like Newcastle had that. And they were going after players who then were heading elsewhere. And I don't know the reasons why players turned them down or not for me to say. But it definitely doesn't feel like they were ready for the window, and that they had day one plans to go out and go this, and this. It doesn't feel that way at all. David, how are we, sir? Said, evening, Craig and community. It will be the best window in the 48 years I've supported the club if we get the two defenders and ISAK. So here's a question for you, David and chat. So the the centre backs are within our control at the minute, right? We know Palace are willing sellers, and we know there's a price for LEONI. So that will take care of itself. But I guess the question I would have is there even a potential for a plan B if ISAK, for whatever reason, doesn't come to fruition? Whether Newcastle just, cut their nose off to spite their face and won't sell him. I'm still concerned, because I think it will happen, but I really don't know of a credible plan B. Barcola, never believed it. Rodrigo, Man City look like they could be making that move, and he could be their target, whereas we still have ISAK as there. So any concerns if we don't get ISAK about being left short or maybe not having time for a plan B? Because I don't know who the plan B would be at this point. But then again, I also think about it logically, and I think, would we really have sold Diaz and Darwin if we weren't pretty confident that either ISAK or whoever else was ready? To give them the credit, I don't think they'd sell it and leave themselves intentionally short. Ryan said, "Evening, Craig. I have a theory. There was a deal. We let GUEHI and ISAK get some silverware before they leave their clubs, and then they come join us." Yeah, I don't buy into it. I do think there was maybe something to Mark GUEHI captaining Crystal Palace and playing again at Wembley for them. I can see something in that maybe, but I don't think anybody was willing to lose a trophy to Newcastle to maybe get a deal done. Newcastle deserved their win in the League Cup. They were the better side on the day and they beat us deservedly. So yeah, I don't agree with that, but it is tinfoil hat season, so you never know, mate. Why not? Let's throw a few mad things around. I want to really quickly just go back to a super chat again, because I can't but say thank you again for this, mate. I don't have enough words to thank you for that, mate. That is absolutely phenomenal. So I just again must want to say thank you, mate, for that. It's incredible. Right, where was I? We've done this one. John, did you see Canade offer of 43.5 million today? I'd seen the report, John, to say that Chelsea made the offer, but I've not. Thanks for saying we deserve it. Oh, Valerian, I have nothing but respect for Newcastle. I know it might seem hard to hear that from me at this moment, but even go watch the video from the Irish guy. When we lost, first thing we did as an account, I said to Connor, message Brian through Geordie and message Michael, the Irish guy, and congratulate them, because you deserve to be congratulated. You were the better team and you won the trophy. And I even said at the time, I don't ever want Liverpool to lose anything, but to see what it meant to Newcastle's fan base and the city, if you weren't moved by that as a football fan, I don't know what to say. I certainly looked at the celebrations up in Newcastle and thought, fair fucks, it meant a lot to the city. They showed up, and Eddie Howe and the lads delivered the trophy. Sincerely, mate, rivalries aside, I thought that was great to see. And on the Canade stuff, John, I don't know if I believe the offer or not, because it's not really being covered by anybody who I would say I would believe. Defensa Central, it's a bit weird them having the information on a deal potentially between two English clubs and not one English journo being briefed on it. I definitely have my doubts about the credibility of it. LFC 2005 said, can't let Canade go to Chelsea, rather sell him for less to Madrid. So for me, if Canade wanted to go to Chelsea, the only reason in my mind I could consider that he wants that is money. Because, Chelsea are obviously a good proposition. They're obviously building something, and they've got good players, and they've, won the Club World Cup, won the Conference League, and are building a really good squad that are going to compete for years to come. But so are we. And he's already with us. And he's already got a great relationship with the fans and the players. So I wouldn't understand it unless it was about money. And a serious difference as well. Like, it would have to be me hearing he's getting an extra 100 grand a week than Liverpool are willing to offer him. So I just don't see it as in any way an upgrade for Canade in his career or a step forward. Kelly, how are we, my friend? Always lovely to see you in. Evening, young Craig. How do I go about applying as a matchday announcer, and can I swear? I don't know, Kelly. I mean, I'd love to be taking over from George Sefton, doing the old and for Liverpool, be great. I don't think we're allowed to swear though, but you know what a legend George Sefton was for the club, and yeah, even going back to when I was a kid, remember George. So yeah, I don't know, maybe have a shout, Kelly, but for me, no chance, because I don't think I could not swear that long. Kem1 said, my only concern is the loss of Diaz and potentially not replacing him. Lucho is very underrated in my view. However, excellent work, FSG. I think that's a very fair concern. Longer term, I do think we have a superstar in Rio. But it takes a lot of belief to think that Arna's ready to give him Lucho's minutes, because I don't see it. And I think the Community Shield gave us an indication of that Cody Gakpo was on and we needed to make a change, and he didn't want to turn around and look at Rio yet. So I think it's a very understandable concern that you've raised. I would say if ISAK comes in, I think maybe the ability for Ekitike to come to the left side would help. And as somebody pointed out earlier on as well, Florian Wirtz can play there. I see something I need to just catch up on. Oh, S4T. Ryan, thank you. Ryan gifted 50 memberships again. Absolute legend, mate. Thank you so much. And congrats to everyone that's gotten a membership. Right. I've loads of time left on tonight's stream, by the way, but I'm just saying this before I forget, because, you know, I'm very forgetful. The podcast, if you are a member, like the 50 that just got them there, the podcast will be out for you guys at 11 p.m. tonight. So you'll be able to get it on the membership tab of the YouTube channel. And for everybody else, it'll be out at 11 a.m. in the morning on Spotify and, of course, here on YouTube. We talked about the defensive situation. We talked about ISAK. We talked about Arne Slot and the formations and the tactics going into the new season. We spoke about young Rio and Gamoa. So I hope you enjoy it, but it will be out at 11. This one. Yvonne said, hi Craig, how are you doing? I can't wait until Friday. I'm good, Yvonne. Like yourself, very, very excited for Friday. Yeah, I love that we're the first game of the season, and I love that we're kicking off with a nighttime game as well. It's going to feel like a long time then until we play against Newcastle, but you know, if we can get that first win on the board early doors, it'll be a great weekend. When we bidding for ISAK, big lad? I don't know, mate. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out the big lad part. Yes, I know him fat. I don't know. It's the honest answer, dude. It's a weird one, because sometimes I look at the reports and I think, do they want us to bid now? You know, because they keep talking about the fact we haven't come back yet. And then other times I look at the reports and I think, well, they probably don't want to sell, or they probably wouldn't consider selling till they get in a replacement. So I still kind of come back to the same thing of, I think they have to get a replacement lined up first. Now, there's another name to the list. Rasmus Højlund was a name that was doing the rounds today as a potential option for Newcastle. I don't know how credible that is. Where are we now? This one. Alpha Cry said, Salah is one of the all-time greats. Relax yourselves, you numpties. He will come good. Lots of panicking from our rivals. Their job is to try disrupt us. Give the team 10 games to get 10 games to gel, and let's see. So obviously I wasn't one of the numpties trying to say Salah's fallen off the cliff. That is, from my opinion, a huge overreaction from some people based off one game. And like I've said, there was extenuating circumstances around the Jota situation as well. So I understand your frustration on that, mate. Stevie Simpson said, ISAK number 9, Ekitike and Gakpo rotated. Ben Doak backup minutes for Salah. Just my opinion, let Chiesa head back home. Good question, Stevie. And thank you, because you've given me a great idea for a poll. Let me just finish this one. But yes, mate, you've given me a really good idea. So, should we revisit who takes our pens? 70% say yes. So here's what I'm going to ask you, based off Stevie's very good thought process about the winger situation. So okay, bear with me. Right, so in the spirit of what Stevie said, pick one of these to keep around for the season. So do you keep Federico Chiesa or do you keep Ben Doak? Which one would you keep if you were Arna and you had to keep one? I got to be honest with you, I'm taking Doak. Not because I think Ben Doak's a better player than Chiesa, but because I think if Ben Doak had a great season, at least he's still a Liverpool player and there's a future there. I don't think there is really a future for Chiesa, and it seems to be that it's out of almost necessity of numbers that we may keep him. So I would choose Doak because I think the potential upside of Doak would be far greater than the potential upside of Chiesa. But it's just an interesting talking point based off Stevie's comment. Ryan said, I hope if Chiesa agreed to stay, he was assured of minutes because he really wants to get back into the Italian squad. When Chiesa is at his peak, he is an incredible player. So I struggle to see, really, where he gets the minutes. Like, even making the mental leap that Arna will utilise him, where does he get these minutes? Like, is he going to be ever ahead of ISAK, Ekitike in the running order? No. So, are we going to bench Salah a lot? No. I just don't see, with the best will in the world, how he gets enough minutes to get into that Italian national team, because he really have to be playing at least once a week to do that. And I can't see a world at Liverpool where he gets that. And he's already playing catch up now because he hasn't had the full preseason. So, yeah, I really struggle to see it. But, I like Chiesa, same as everybody else. And I've been frustrated that we haven't seen more of him. Ray's watching, said Craig, Klopp did a good job giving young players opportunities. Do you see Slot doing the same? So far, he's quite reluctant to give any players a chance to get up to speed, apart from his favourites. I think you may be being a tad unfair there. I mean, Trey LEONI has been shown a clear pathway. Rio Engamoa, clear pathway. Stevenson, who showed that he's impressed Arna, was brought over on the pre-season tour. So I do think the pathway will be there. And even looking at it from the perspective of why Rio Engamoa left Chelsea, he felt the pathway the first team was probably better at Liverpool. So I do think it's difficult for a manager like Arna or any top club, because to give a youthful player a chance, let's say across a whole season, maybe you can do it at a club whose aims aren't to try to win every competition they're in. But it is really difficult at a top club for a manager to give these guys the opportunities unless it's an undoubted talent. So, yeah, I think Arna's doing as much as we can maybe expect at a manager at a top club. And you have to be a standout youth player to get the opportunities anyway. Joseph Purvis, how are we, Joseph? Said, I love how we're only talking about the dream being to get both GUEHI and LEONI. Now it's happening not even a day later. I know. It's amazing. It really is. Even in my optimistic state, I didn't think both would have been possible. So to see that we may be moving for both is brilliant. Eddie, when do you think the deals get done? So the two centre-backs, I mean, sincerely could be done by Friday. I don't want to overstate that. Based off the reports tonight, that looks like it's moving very quickly on both of them. So, yeah, those two could be done by the weekend. And the ISAK one, I still don't see a world where it's done before, at least after the Newcastle game. So I think that one will drag on a bit longer. VI Jokers said, I think ISAK will be the Liverpool player by the end of next week. I hope so. I mean, look, the sooner the better, because the sooner he becomes a Liverpool player, the sooner you can start working on his fitness and getting him available for selection. Because even if he stayed at Newcastle, like I've said, he hasn't had a pre-season proper, so that's going to have to be taken into account. But sooner the better for me. I'd be a liar if I said to you I have any indication of when it might happen. Andy said, "Hi Craig, what do you think is our best balanced midfield that we can put out?" Oh, it's a really good question. So I'm going to be honest, because it's going to open me up for probably a bit of criticism, but I can only tell you how I felt all the way through the summer. For me, I would probably say the answer is Gravenberch, McAllister, Wirtz, because that does leave Dom being done dirty, and I can't get away from that. But I just think the balance of the midfield is better with McAllister in it than not in it. And even with a Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, Wirtz, I still think Macca's all-around game just gives us a bit more security. So that would be, off the top of my head, the three I would go with. But I totally understand if people feel like Szoboszlai should be in there because of all of his good attributes, work rate, and defensive cover. But to me, that's just the three that, if I was going into a cup final and I was Arne, that's the three I'm putting out on the pitch. But again, so tough because Dom deserves all the respect. And he's been really good in pre-season as well. So, I hope that this battle just pushes these guys on to new levels and standards, and that, a rising tide floats all boats. Florin, thank you, my man. Appreciate you. So look, what are we people thinking on that midfield lineup? Because it is tough, I know. And if you have to have three, somebody's always going to be left out. And whoever you're leaving out, whether that is a McAllister, a Wirtz, a Szoboszlai, it's tough because you can make a very credible argument for them all to play. I'm a particular lover of Alexis McAllister. I absolutely love the guy as a midfielder, because he can do a bit of everything and do it all well. So for me, I would always probably favour having him in midfield. Did you see any new position for Dom? Yeah, good question, Dan. I don't know. It's going to take me probably 2 to 3 games of seeing what Arne is doing to understand the variations from last season and the positional differences for the players. Craig, do you think Gomez is being sold now? I don't, Rain, but I do think he'll be sold next year. So in my mind, mate, and again, this is just in my mind, I'm thinking you're bringing in LEONI, but realistically, is LEONI going to be ready to play a lot of games this year? Probably not. So whether or not he goes on loan, I think you're probably looking at a year's time for him. So then you've got Gomez to move on in a year. Let's say, for argument's sake, Canade stays. Then you have Canade, Virgil, GUEHI, and LEONI, as well as young Nello. So in a year's time, I think it's a comfortable conversation to move on Joe Gomez. But for this year, his experience could be key, especially if you are bringing in another young centre-back. Ella, how are you, my friend? Hey, Craig, hope you're well. Just coming off Coventry versus Luton match, Carabao Cup first round. Nice. Good to see you getting over to some Coventry games, Ella. I can't say I kept tabs on the game or anything, but always lovely to see you win, my friend, and I hope that you're well. Right, where are we at with this one? Oof, interesting. Right, we've nearly had 1,500 votes, and we said pick one of these wingers or players to keep, Chiesa or Doak, for the season ahead. Colzer said, would you still sign ISAK with his petty attitude towards Newcastle? Maybe Real Madrid come in and he refuses to play for us then. So this has been a question that I've seen put up a few times. The answer is yes, I would still sign him. And I think this again sounds arrogant, but I think there's a marked difference between Newcastle and Liverpool and Real Madrid, because ISAK can look at Liverpool and feel like he can win everything. Champions League, Premier League, League Cup, FA Cup. Can't really feel that with Newcastle. So I can understand, and I don't like the way this has gone. I've said this so many times. I hate when it gets this toxic, but I wouldn't have the same concern, because I honestly think this is a move he thinks is the biggest one of his career, and he's fighting for that. So I get it, but no, I don't have the concerns that he would do similar at Madrid, because I don't think he'd have as many broken promises with us as maybe he would have. But again, never like to see players go this way. It would be far more grown up if this was dealt with properly and there was a realization that you were told he wanted to go, prepare for it, and get as much money as you can. Joseph Rawson said, why can I see GUEHI pushing Canade out of the starting lineup within 3 games? Canade starting to look a little bit clumsy recently. I don't disagree. We talked about this on the podcast tonight, actually, and I was different to Steve and Chris. So I said, if you had to pick 2 centre-backs for a game, let's say against Arsenal later on in the window or in the summer, who would you pick for your centre-back pairing? And I would pick Van Dijk and GUEHI because of that consistency and calmness. And like you've said, I often feel that there's a rashness in Canade. So for me, I absolutely see a world where Mark GUEHI becomes the partner for Virgil. I do. But the other 2 lads disagreed with me on it, so I'm not really sure what the general consensus is, but I would see a world where that happens, Joseph, yeah. Florin, thank you. Said, hi Craig, love your channel. GUEHI and ISAK in what's your first 11? Depends when. So like, I'll give you an answer for the United game in October, because everybody will have been bedded in then. So my 11 at that point would be Alisson, Frimpong, GUEHI, Virgil, Kirkes, Gravenberch, McAllister, Wirtz, Salah, ISAK, Ekitike on the left. That would be the 11 for me. Frank, hi Craig, hope you're well. Could you tell us your preferred lineup for the season, including GUEHI and ISAK? Well, I just did. 2 super chats with 1 answer. Look at that. That's the first time I think I've ever been able to do that. But yeah, that would be my 11. And look, I can absolutely understand variations of it, and why people might have 1 or 2 different in their own minds. That's just what the 11 I think would be the best. Daniel Bullock, how are you, Daniel? Said, hi Craig, I'm a Newcastle fan. I respect your channel and Liverpool supporters. In my opinion, we should sell ISAK, buy Visa and Mateta and Vlahovic as replacements, and buy a CM for Longstaff. Well, welcome in, Daniel, and thank you for your kind words, mate. Look, I'll be honest with you. One football fan to another, I think you can do a little bit better than Mateta. Personally, I think you can. Visa is a good signing. Like, I totally get that, especially when you're looking to replace a Callum Wilson. I think you're getting better with Johan Visa there, because I think he's not as injury prone, and he has a real desire to want to play in the Champions League and prove himself at another level. So that's a great sign if you get it in. I just think with Mateta, I don't know, I feel like he could do a bit better there. As mad as this sounds, and I'm probably going to get stick for this, I've always felt Højlund has something about him. And I said this to Connor earlier on. I know it hasn't worked out for him at the minute at United, but he's the type of player that I think will come good. And I think if you got him, he might not be ready for you right now, but I don't know. I like Rasmus Højlund. There's something about that kid that as soon as he went to United, he just almost has a fire in his belly that he really wants it to work. Yeah, so I think for me, I don't like the idea of Mateta personally. But if you can get all those players you mentioned, I mean, certainly a good use of some money. The Nicholas Jackson one's an interesting conversation as well. Because you look at Nicholas Jackson sometimes and you can see why Chelsea went for him. And then other times you look at him and you just can see inconsistency. So it'll be interesting to see what way Newcastle pivot on this one and who they get in. Where was I? This one. Was there any chance we could have gotten Haddo? Of course. Now, again, I'm not saying even if we both went to the table, Haddo might not have gone to Chelsea, but yeah, of course. I don't know why we didn't look at Jarell Haddo properly. I don't know if he liked the vision of Chelsea. You know, I'm not trying to say we could have gazumped Chelsea, but there was certainly a world where we could have looked at him, yeah. You know, we know how highly Virgil thinks of him as well. Greg Herrick, how are we, sir? Said, love the show, Craig. Thank you, Greg. My concern at this point is that there has been too much change and not enough time for the team to gel and become a cohesive team. Big part of winning last season was the same lads. I do understand that concern. I just think we haven't really seen the best Liverpool 11 on the pitch, even in pre-season yet. So, you know, give me Gravenberch in that midfield. Give me Kirkes with a little bit more time under his belt. And I think a lot of those concerns will be addressed. I personally just don't think we're at the point of too many changes yet, but I am concerned that we haven't had enough rhythm together yet. This one from Sam said Ekitike has hits his winner at St James's Park holding up ISAK up top, said Sam. David Richardson said, I'm already rock hard from our business done so far. If we get ISAK, Gay and LEONI, it's going to break off, Craig, mate. I understand, David, I understand. It's, yeah, no need for any little blue tablets, mate, this summer. It's been an incredible bit of business. Patrick said, Hoyland's a donkey, always will be. Look, that's your opinion, mate, no problem. But I disagree. I think there's a player in Hoyland, and I think, you know, over time, he'll come good when he matures a little bit and, yeah, has a bit more rhythm. I think there's a player in there. This one from Nick Kingdom. Evening, Craig. Great stream. This window has been amazing. So looking forward to this season. I was anyway. This is definitely a marathon, not a sprint, that Hughes and Edwards are going for. Look, once we get this business done, yeah, I totally understand the concerns because I had them myself about all of it gelling together. But ultimately, we are going to be set for the next 3, 4, 5 years with this window, and I cannot wait for it. It's beyond even my wildest dreams for the summer, mate. It's been incredible if we get these last few bits done. Mark said, if Chiesa is on 140k and then Canada is worth 140k minimum. Oh, definitely. No argument on that. He's first choice and I would rather give him what he wants than lose him for nothing. So for me, the problem came not with putting him up to 140. It's 200 grand a week I think is too much for Canada because I don't think he's there yet. Remember what Virgil had to do to get that money. And now Virgil, yes, has gotten more again. But I don't think Canada has shown the full package for long enough to be worth 200 grand a week, in my mind. But I do agree, 140, 150, even maybe 160, no problem. He's on 80 now, I think. Close to doubling that. I think that would be enough for me, Mark. Robert said, been with you when you went full-time, got the new car, so the I don't know what you mean. House is a cert. You mean so much to us all. Sorry, mate. I was trying to figure out the last part. Thank you. Yeah, these little moments, Robert, have been great. Like, I've been doing this now 8 years all in. Went full-time 2 years ago. As you said, got the first new car. Hopefully going to buy this house in the next few months. And without you guys and your support, man, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do it. So all of this only comes about because of you guys and because you stuck with me, even at times where I was petty, angry, frustrated, sad, all over the place on occasion. You guys never gave up on me, man, and I hope to never let you down. Christopher said, do you think GUEHI could play the 6 and we play 3 at the back with him dropping in between Vivid and Canade? I don't know why we'd even look to consider that at the minute, mate. We have more than enough young talent there, whether it be LEONI, Bajcetic, Maka can even drop in to play the 6. So I wouldn't be looking to consider Mark A as a 6. You've got Gomez, I guess, who could do the 6 role to some extent. But for me, the big plus about Mark A is left or right sided centre back and can cover both of them. Kaz, how are we? Said good morning. Finally Liverpool moving. Very happy. Yep, it's crazy, Kaz, isn't it? What 24 hours can do in the world of football. Where is Bajcetic? Haven't seen him since the surgery at the end of the season. Haven't seen much from him or much written about him. Dan said, "We love you, Craig." Thank you, mate. Look, I have massive imposter syndrome. Like, I look at the numbers on here, see you guys in the chat, and I feel like you're all making a mistake. And every day I come on, I feel like someday you'll realise that I'm an idiot and not worth your time. But I'm so grateful to be here. I can't reiterate it enough. Like, I didn't think I'd ever have a life go as well as things have turned in the last while, without trying to get too sad about it all. Means a lot. I'm excited by it. I'm scared that I'll shit to bed, but I'm going to keep plugging away and try, because, you know, you're all still here. And for whatever reason, I really appreciate that. Thoughts on Donnarumma? I kind of go back and forth on Donnarumma, to be honest. And I heard somebody summarise it really well yesterday. They said, like, why would Enrique want to bring in another keeper? And I guess it's because modern coaches, the Guardiolas, your Enriques, they want their goalkeeper to be able to be a ball player with the ball at their feet as well. And I guess for all the great attributes that Gianluigi Donnarumma has, that isn't one of them. But, you know, I've seen both sides of him. I've seen Donnarumma be like a brick wall that you can't get past, and I've seen him lose his head and have some strange games. So what I would say is, if he went to the likes of a Manchester United or even a City, I think it would be a good signing for them as a goalkeeper. But he does have some drawbacks depending on how you want your goalkeeper to play. Stevie Boy said, did you see Slot using Rio Chiesa in the league and Champions League, or is it more of the same where he doesn't utilise them? I fear it's more of the same. And that's why I was concerned, Stevie Boy, with not seeing Rio in particular given 10 minutes in the Community Shield, because I think he should have, because we needed to shake it up. So yeah, I hope we don't see same old as last season, but maybe as the season goes on, his belief and not belief, that's not fair. Maybe he feels more open to Rio being a game changer. Leviathan, thank you for becoming a member, mate. Appreciate you. Right, I'm going to start to wind the stream down in a minute or two, so please don't send any more super chats or messages, because I might not get to them and I don't want you wasting your money. So let me just fly through these ones. Ryan said, if Real Madrid want to turn ISAK's head when his contract run out, they can have him at 31. Yeah, for 300 million. The real Johnny Sins said, Craig, I know this sounds stupid, but seriously, why can't ISAK just end this saga by terminating his Newcastle contract and joining us for free? Because legally it's not that simple. I know there's a statute in UEFA, but it still opens Liverpool and him up to damages financially if he does it. So it's just not a really feasible. It'll just end up in lawsuits and it'll get even nastier. Liam said, how long do you think it would take ISAK to get fit? I could see it the other side of the September international break. So, you know, yeah, give him a month with Liverpool, and then after that international break, maybe you start seeing him start. But I would imagine, Liam, if he came in, I say you'll probably see him off the bench a couple of times before he's ready to start, though he isn't ready yet. Right, let's check this poll. So pick one to keep. We nearly have 2,500 votes, so we'll let it go a second or two longer while I finish these super chats. But if you haven't voted, we're asking, which one would you keep for this season? Federico Chiesa or Ben Doak? Eddie said, I think I'm going to have to change my opinion on FSG. Certainly, I admire that you're willing to do that, Eddie, because I have to change my opinion as well. You know, I've often said I didn't think they had the ambition. I didn't think they had the desire to actually really go for the jugular and make us a dynasty. This summer has shown I think I was right to call for the signings when I did, and I was right to demand more, but we've got more. And I think as fans, it's only fair that we acknowledge that. Or if we don't acknowledge it, then we are just on an agenda. You always have to be open to changing your view over time. You know, can't be a closed shop. So appreciate that you're willing to do it as well. Leviathan, thank you. Appreciate you. And 50 Ping Skiller said, hey Craig, you're no imposter. Trust up the Reds. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that and your support as well as a member. Right, ladies and gents, let's end this poll. 58% said that they would keep Ben Doak. So thank you so much to everybody that took time to vote. Right, look, I'm going to go record a late night news update because, of course, there's more stuff in the inbox that I haven't got round to yet. Podcast will be out at 11 for members. Don't forget to check that one out. And it will be out in the morning for everybody on Spotify and on YouTube. If I can ask you one little favour, don't forget to check out Anfield Agenda clips. We're trying to get that channel to 100,000 subscribers to get the silver play button. We're about 55,000 of the way there. If you can, do check out Anfield Agenda clips as well. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Great stream.